I have participated in interventions. I've participated in 5 of them, five, maybe 6, just a handful. I've never had one that went well. Because again, people have that defensive mechanism. You are crazy. I don't have a problem. There's nothing going on. They can explain everything. You are the ones that have the problem, is usually what they say. You are nuts.
Licensed attorney, award-winning writer, businessman, entrepreneur, and other over-the-top crap. It's Life and Law with Eugene Cisco Jr.
Welcome back to another episode of the Real Life and Law podcast. Today is a follow-up episode from last week's episode. So we discussed the difference between drug or substance, I should say. It's not just drugs, because we could also be talking about alcohol in this situation, but substance abuse as well as substance addiction, because I had no idea, but there is a very distinct difference. So we spoke about that last week, and today we're going to be talking about treatment, some sort of recovery plan that either you could take or you could try to suggest to a loved one. So, Eugene, very briefly, because I know you love to talk.
Okay.
I would love for our listeners or our viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, to go back and watch last week's episode first so they get a better idea of what we're going to be talking about. But for this episode's sake, could you very briefly go through the difference between substance abuse and substance addiction?
Yeah. Okay. Very briefly, substance abuse is the next level below once an individual is addicted. Its hallmarks are generally negative consequences. When you use a substance, you experience some type of negative consequences, generally in the form of some kind of social thing. It could be trouble with the law. It could be family relationship issues. But whatever it is, it's generally characterized by some type of social problem. You lose control of the substance, basically. Before abuse, you have some modicum of control over the substance. So addiction is a pervasive preoccupation with the substance, the feeling that you can't do without it. It's constantly on your mind. It invades every part of your life. And in fact, and one of the bigger hallmarks other than the preoccupation is the physical dependency of the substance. And then once you try to quit, you go through withdrawals. If you've had episodes of withdrawals from a substance, then you are likely meet the classification of addiction. So that, in a nutshell, that's what it is.
That's perfect. That's what I was looking for in a nutshell. So could you go into a little more detail of what maybe a loved one should look out for if they think that their loved one is maybe addicted to a substance, or maybe even yourself, if you're like, I think I might have a problem? Like, are there certain specific signs that an addict may have?
Well, so first off, individuals are hesitant to recognize it in themselves.
Of course.
Because it's so stigmatized. So we don't want to see, and I think in my work as a counselor, I think humans are inherently born with the ability to not recognize harmful things about our character or about ourselves. I don't just want to call it a character issue, but we're just not built to look in a mirror and recognize that we have a flaw or that we have a problem. We're just not built to do that. So we're really the last ones to recognize it. Other people might tell us, of which time we will ignore it often. And we have a weird way, a person in addiction, before they reach that understanding that they are in addiction, they tend to look at each episode, each negative episode, as a compartmentalized problem. And that once it's over with, it's done, and they're not going to have any more issues until the next issue with that substance. So they don't tend to see it in themselves. It's only after multiple times that they begin to wake up, and when people start telling them time and time again, and when they've fallen down or when they've suffered some kind of problem because of their substance use, then only after a little while that they begin to try to reach out and get help. So if you're a parent or if you have a loved one, there's some really markers that you can look to. Maybe they've changed their whole social group. Maybe they used to hang out with you a lot and do a lot of family things, and you see them now not doing that. Maybe the group of friends that they've kept secret. And those that you know about don't have the best reputation. So, you see that the more that they gravitate, the more that they make connections with these individuals that provide them support with their substance, the less they engage you and their other friends who don't use substances. And that makes a lot of sense, right? I just think humans are built for comfort. Like we like comfort. We will do things to be comfortable. In fact, the only time we ever motivated to change is when we're uncomfortable. Otherwise, we're just happy to sit in a big old pile of crap, until it becomes uncomfortable. So, knowing that, we will gravitate toward those people who make it easy for us to do the thing we want to do. If I was a NASCAR fan, I'm not going to surround myself with tennis fans, right? Because I can get nothing from those people.
Makes sense. If
my family is a little bit on the religious side, and they don't even have to be religious, they just don't do substances, then what's the likelihood that I'm going to hang around with them all the time if I'm using substances? Not very good. Yeah, because I'm going to have to hear the crap. They're going to tell me time and time again that what I'm doing isn't right, or, they're going to be on my case. They're going to make it difficult for me to use. And I don't want that. I want to go to where it's easy to use, easy to get the stuff I need. And so there I'm going to try to seek out individuals that will make that easier. So that's what we do. It's not it's not rocket science. So when you see that happening, then it's likelihood that you're going to have a problem.
Now, I like that you actually brought that up, because my mind didn't even go that way. I was thinking more like maybe there's some physical signs that people, like physical things that people do, but I love that you had brought up the people that they hang out with, because you're right. Everyone knows right from wrong, but they don't want to admit to themselves that what they are doing is wrong or harmful to themselves. So if they're hanging out with people that are doing the exact same thing, they're in the same mindset, and they're saying, oh, what's one more hit, or, have another drink. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like it's a bad thing, and everyone is in the same mindset. So they're in like this other world, like their judgment is clouded.
The behavior becomes normalized because, again, we're not built to believe that we're abnormal in any way. I know people don't like to hear that word, but you know what? Well over 90% of the people don't use substances to any degree that it's a problem. So to that degree, if you're part of the 10%, then you're not the normal 90%. So we're just not built to look at ourselves in a mirror and believe that we've got a problem.
Do you know why we're built like that as humans? Like, do you have any knowledge into like the psychiatric part of it?
I just think it's the ultimate defense mechanism. It's also the thing that'll cause you to self-destruct. If you're not able to, like a lot of people don't have, I guess it's akin, and I don't know this, but just in the way I've looked, it's akin to self-awareness. You know, most people, it takes years to get that. And most of the time, people that use substances are early, they're early users. They begin early in life. And so they don't develop that skill to be self-aware. In fact, everything about a young person pushes back when someone tells them that there's something wrong. But in fact, though, the physical issues that you mentioned, there are physical things that you look for, but those usually don't come till later. Loss of weight, loss of appetite, sleep disturbances. Those are other key factors. If you're living with someone, you certainly will see those. But those things come later, a little bit later, and maybe you're not real attuned to it, and maybe they're sitting there at dinner and they're nodding off. You know, they're doing and then you ask them, what's wrong? Well, I didn't get much sleep last night, or I worked late. That's usually the standard line. And you see it happening all the time. In the middle of the day, they're sleeping. They're taking a nap. You know, they're 23, 24, 25, maybe even 30. And, 2 o'clock in the day, they're nodding off. That's not normal. So something's wrong. So if you watch those things and you keep getting that kind of denial, then there's probably time to really examine everything about that individual. And then once you get enough information to believe that they are using substances, maybe, mount some kind of intervention.
That was actually a question just popped up into my head. This wasn't even prepared, but would you suggest an intervention? I feel like a lot that won't go over well a lot of the times.
It doesn't. There was a great show. I can't remember on one of.
It was called Intervention.
Yeah, I can't remember what channel it was or what network, but yeah, it showed that. So to me, I have participated in interventions, and I've participated in 5 of them, five maybe 6, just a handful. I've never had one that went well because again, people have that defensive mechanism. You are crazy. I don't have a problem. There's nothing going on. Yeah, so I, got pulled over for the DUI. And so I got a PI while I was out. It was my birthday, for God's sakes. They can explain everything. You are the ones that have the problem, is usually what they say. You are nuts, not me.
So then how would you transition someone from an intervention to getting help? Like, I feel like maybe having an intervention isn't a good step.
I think at the end of the day, oftentimes the intervention isn't there because that individual at the time everyone else thinks it's time for an intervention, that individual isn't ready to hear it. You can try it, certainly. I think the whole point of an intervention maybe is to get that individual to realize that the people around them love them. The people around them want to give them support, and that all these people want to help them whenever they're ready to get the help.
Also, the people surrounding them are noticing the issues. So the person themselves obviously isn't noticing them. But if enough people come together for an intervention, that will probably cross their mind being like, well, they obviously are seeing something, and maybe it'll cause that one individual to maybe try to pay more attention, and then maybe later on down the road, they'll be like, you know what, I think they were right. But if you didn't stage that intervention, if you didn't have that intervention, then maybe that moment in time when they realize that they may have a problem wouldn't come till later down the road because there was nothing for them to almost compare it to. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have the intervention or the people telling them, we think you have a problem. So it might, here you go. I think I'm reversing my answer now. At first I was like, don't have an intervention. Now I'm like, it might be a good idea. But
no, I think they're good. They're certainly good for the family. Okay. They're certainly good for the family and friends. And there's value in that, right? So there's value in allowing these other people to have an avenue So at least they made that loved one aware that they know. Because sometimes these people are living in this bubble and they're caught up in that substance and they're caught up in that world. And they believe that they've got it together. They think that they figured it out. And so the more people that tell them that, then eventually they're going to put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. That's the hope. And it's my experience, the younger the person is, the less likely an intervention is going to work.
Yeah.
Except to the degree. It allows, I think the goal in an intervention should be, the ultimate goal probably shouldn't be get the person into treatment, although that's laudable. It's most likely not going to happen. So get prepared for that. But what it does do, I think if your goals and your expectations are that this person realizes that all these people love them and that there are resources out there, you'll always want to let that individual know through an intervention that there are a lot of resources, more than just your support and your encouragement. So if it's someone that's really close to you, like a son or a daughter or a husband or a wife, I think you just have to let them know that you love them. But you have to let them know that you're not going to enable them. Certainly if they're living in your home, I think you have to lay down the marker and you have to be strong enough to say, this is counter to what we believe in. Now, you will always have a place to come and go, or I will always help you find a place to stay. But if you continue this, we can't participate. So you have to be strong enough to do that. And that is hard to do.
Yeah, it's tough love, right? It's hard. You're a counselor that helps people with substance abuse as well as substance addiction. And we just kind of went over the fact that interventions don't usually result in what we want to happen if we are staging it. So if we have a loved one that is using, maybe on their way to being an addict or is already an addict. So how do people end up searching treatment? Do they come to you on their own? Are they at that point where they're like, okay, I think I have a problem? Or do you actually get families that have convinced their loved one that they should receive treatment and they're doing it maybe just for them? And who knows, maybe they'll relapse. We don't know. But how do most people come and seek treatment?
I can honestly say that in all the years I've been doing, and I've been working in this space since 1984, a long time. I can honestly say I've never had anyone come to my office on their own. I've not had it. It's usually from pressure from a family member, the court system. Generally, those are the 2 biggest referrals. Court system, family members.
I think that's really important to note for people that are listening, that if you have a loved one that you think is having issues, they will most likely not seek treatment or seek help on their own. So this is where the tough love comes in. This is where you have to come in.
In fact, a nifty little trick I've seen many people do, and it works in a small town, really. This is a better trick for a small town. Because in small towns, in a small town, everything's local, right? So I have seen parents charge, because oftentimes someone in addiction will steal, okay? They'll write bad checks. They might steal a debit card. They might do a lot of things, little petty stuff to get enough money to get their substance. So they might steal a watch and get it pawned. They might steal cash. They might steal. So if you suspect that, then you can always file some type of small criminal charge on the individual. Now, what a lot of people say, why do you want to file a charge against your loved one for? Well, because if you think they're in addiction, the safest place a lot of times they can be is in a jail. The chances of them getting substances go way, way, way down. Although there's a lot of people that'll say, you can get more drugs in jail than you can on the street. That is utter baloney. Jails are pretty tight. I can't say you're not going to get substances in a jail, because you can. But can you get more than that's available on the street? Certainly not. And certainly not the kind of substance you want. So a lot of times you might be, and I have had many clients tell me that going to jail saved their life because it got them clean. It's the worst kind of detox. It's the worst kind, to be on a cold concrete jail cell with bare minimum food and sweating it out. And it is the worst kind of detox. I don't recommend it to anybody. However, it will bring some clarity.
And it forces them to as well.
Yeah, they have no choice. So for 7 or 8 days, they get some clarity. And at that time, you can get counseling in jails now. Almost every facility has some type of substance abuse and addiction counseling program available to them. And so you're not in jail for very long on a small misdemeanor. And in fact, if you're the one that filed the charges, when that thing processes to a degree through the court system, you can either have it dropped, or you can ask the judge to maybe, or the prosecutor, you won't ask the judge, you'll ask the prosecutor, I'm okay to dismiss the charges so long as they get some kind of help. So you can leverage the criminal charge with treatment. That's done all the time in small towns. When I prosecuted, that was a popular mechanism to get someone to get treatment. Okay? Forced treatment isn't the best kind of treatment, but again, it's like the intervention. It gives that person information, and you hope that time after time after time, little bits of this information sinks through the noggin and does some good, penetrates, and actually they wake up one day, like I had that client, I think I said the last time, after 17 times of being in jail, he realized maybe he's got a problem, and he began to get some help.
People come to you with different, like they're addicted or they're using whole different wide range of drugs or alcohol. Now, you help them with treatment, but is the treatment plan, does it look different from patient to patient?
Well, when you get right down, no, opioids are basically all the same. Well, let's first things first. Detox is not treatment, okay? It's treatment to the sense that it will clean your body, okay? But it is not the kind of treatment that we consider to be long-term therapy, okay? It's short-term. It's just mostly to clean your body. Most people who aren't familiar with this whole process will believe that if a loved one goes out to a detox center for 7 to 14, maybe 21 days, then when they come back, they're good. They're better. No, that's not the case. That's just the first step. So detox is not treatment in the sense that we're talking about. So treatment, there's a couple of types of treatment. Okay, you can go to short-term treatment. You can go to long-term treatment. Short-term treatment, so we break these down. Short-term treatment is generally for individuals who maybe first time go around. It's mostly for education, information kind of purposes. They're giving you a lot of tools in a short-term facility. They're giving you a lot of tools. They're introducing you to this whole new world of treatment. Generally, your first time engaged into some kind of treatment, maybe a 30, 60, at most a 90-day treatment facility for first-timers. So that's the first level. If you've had a couple of go-rounds at short-term treatment, then maybe you go to long-term treatment where you're kind of sequestered and where they are bombarding you with this information. You live, eat, drink sobriety. You live, eat, drink tools and skills that you're going to need when you come out of this long-term facility. That's anywhere between 6 months and a year. So But so if we back up a little bit before the short term, you have something called outpatient treatment. Now, outpatient treatment is just going to a place a couple of times a week for counseling, for information. That typically is good for a legitimate first-time user. The very first, in the very early stages of the addiction process. Outpatient is good only if the individuals in your immediate circle are supportive, they're substance-free, and they have the means necessary to get you to and from where you need to be. That is the perfect individual for outpatient treatment. I've seen all too many times outpatient treatment used inappropriately. And what I mean by that is that individual's family setting isn't conducive for outpatient because this person's going to counseling and they're coming back in the same old rat's nest. And so you just can't beat that. So a lot of times, even the court system will recommend outpatient. They should recommend an assessment first. And the assessment, the person, if they're good at assessing the problem, will be able to determine, and a big factor in that is the family members and the people in their immediate circle. If they're not with the plan and they're all not sober, outpatient's not where you want to be. You want to be in a short-term facility first and try to get some skills. And that person's going to have to understand that maybe when they get out, hopefully they get enough information and clarity that they realize that these people they're hanging around with that they call family might not be the best fit for them. So that's treatment in a nutshell. We've got, if we got through the stages, we got detox. We have outpatient treatment, which is the very lowest level, but only appropriate for good, strong, stable family or caregivers in that unit. Then you've got short-term, then you have your long-term, and then after that, if a treatment plan, and that was your question, is a treatment plan. If the treatment plan doesn't factor in two things, I did a TikTok on this too. If it doesn't factor in the individual's age, the first thing, if it doesn't factor in the individual's age of onset and their family structure, it's not very good. It's not good because age of onset is important because at some level the therapist has to unwind the clock back to the time that individual began to use the substance so that way they can start to develop the skills that they stopped developing or using when they started using substances. So you have to rebuild that individual's mindset. So if it doesn't include those two things and an aftercare, if it don't include those three things, it's not a very good treatment plan because aftercare a lot of times is where it's at after you get your treatment. Having a lifeline, getting a consistent aftercare program together. If it doesn't do that, that treatment plan will fail. So that's a general framework of what treatment is. Now, inside that, you can micro it to fit that individual, maybe their diet, maybe their exercise regimen, maybe some other things that you incorporate that is part of that individual, hobbies, interests. So you incorporate all those other things once the basic framework is built. But there's some basic framework that you see across all individuals and all substances. All these substances are the same as far as recovery goes and a treatment plan. It's all the same.
Okay.
In my humble opinion.
Well, that's why we have you on here. We need your opinion. Now, and your clinic is an outpatient clinic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what you focus on.
Right. We don't have a treatment, an inpatient facility. We mostly focus on outpatient. We make referrals all the time. We kind of focus on education and counseling. I believe if you give someone enough education, you give them the tools that they can, and some support, then eventually they can figure it out with enough of the tools and the support. They can create, a plan that works for them.
Now, is there a place that, let's just say that you have a loved one and you're worried about them. Is there a place that they can go get assessed to find out like where they should be seeking help or treatment or counseling from, kind of like what you were saying with the court system does or should do?
I think if you're out there and you have someone that you think might be traveling that pathway to addiction, the first thing you can do is maybe try to gather some local resources. I wouldn't have them right off the bat go to a self-help or Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous. That's not where they need to be at that time. Go to your physician. Physicians, doctors' offices generally have resources. Community mental health centers. They're all over the country. Every little community has a community mental health facility. That is where you can get in contact. You can get in contact with an addiction specialist or a therapist who can tell you what you need to do. They have programs that you can enroll in and get what you need, at least on that level. And if you think you need detox, and that's certainly something maybe for your physician or the community mental health center, you can ask them those questions. Hey, where can I find a good detox facility? Where can I find a good counseling program for, opioid addiction, or nerve medication addiction, or meth addiction. Like I said, basically they're all the same. The substance isn't the same, but I think the way to treat and the way to approach the addiction is roughly the same.
Okay, makes sense. Now you're saying to kind of at that point stay away from Narcotics and Alcoholics Anonymous. Why is that? And like what kind of, do they offer counseling in a way? I'm not quite sure what's involved with those programs, because a lot of the time stereotypically people are thinking, okay, the first step is AA or NA, but apparently that might not be a good first step.
No, because at that point, if it's your very first introduction, you're getting individuals who are in recovery. Now, they can give you tricks and support, but it's mostly support. You don't get to support until you've gone through and gathered some tools and education that you can use. And it's more or less something that's included in your aftercare program.
Okay, so it's one of the final steps then.
Yeah, it's something that you would do once you have been in, immediately after you leave a facility, you should hook up with a group, a support group, no matter what it is, but there's all kinds of support groups out there. And you should link up with one of those, maybe at a local church or a local medical facility or clinic can tell you where those are. But they're almost every church has access or points of contact for self-help and support groups.
Okay, that makes sense for sure. So we've gone over the difference between substance abuse and substance addiction. We've talked about the steps that you should take if you have a loved one that you think is either on the road to addiction or maybe already is there. We've talked about treatment, counseling, and like the different stages, I guess you could say. Is there anything else? Because we probably won't come back to this topic at least for another few weeks. Is there anything else that you would love to get out to your audience or your viewers? Any more juicy information you think that they should know?
No, I don't think so. I could go on forever and talk about some of the clients I've had and some of the unique stories, but that's not this isn't the place for that. So just kind of take a look at it. So look at my social media page, and always want to kind of close and let people know when life and law collide in your world. give us a holler, look us up. We've got all kinds of information. I have all of my contact information on my various platforms: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, our podcast. So that's just, look us up. Reach out to somebody. If it ain't me, make it be somebody else, and just let them know for this particular issue. And always, I want to give shout out to you, Katie. And I know you always hate that, but if y'all like what we're doing here, she's partially responsible. So if you're out there and you're looking to try to build your own channel or your own podcast, hit her up. We're going to have her link in our description, and along with my stuff. So I think that's it.
All right. Thank you once again. I'll thank you every episode.
You don't have to do that.
Well, okay. Oh, as always, a pleasure, Eugene. And until our next episode.
Turn me around, help me to the door. I'll never make it on my own. Turn me around.